You are listening to Sales Optex. Visit us at salesoptex.com.
Right now, at this exact moment, you are probably paying, I don't know, thousands of dollars a year for the most advanced revolutionary technology on the planet.
Oh, absolutely.
Your company has the subscriptions, the enterprise licenses, the whole works. And yet, if you're like, well, 99% of knowledge workers out there, you are using it like a glorified Google search.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
You open a little chat window, you type in a question, you get a few paragraphs of text back, and then you just manually copy and paste that text into an email or like a PowerPoint slide.
Right, which is just wild.
It really is. And today, we're going to tell you why that workflow is already completely obsolete. Welcome to the deep dive. We are so thrilled you're joining us because today we have a real mission. We're delivering a pretty provocative reality check about how you work and honestly, how you are about to work.
It's a massive blind spot in the corporate world right now. I mean, we've collectively confused a simple chat interface with the actual capability of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we interact with these tools through a chat box, asking it to write a polite email or summarize an article, we artificially constrain our imagination of what the tech can actually do.
We box it in.
Exactly. And today is about shattering that constraint. We're exploring a radical paradigm shift in knowledge work. And while we're going to look at this specifically through the lens of sales operations, I mean, the architecture we're talking about applies to almost anyone whose job involves data, analysis, deliverables, you name it.
We are talking about moving from using AI as an assistant to using AI as an operator. Or really, an agent.
An agent, yes.
We're going to break down exactly how you build an agentic sales operations environment. We're moving way beyond, the Silicon Valley buzzwords here.
Way beyond?
We're looking at the practical nuts and bolts architecture of giving your AI a desk to work at, giving it hands to touch your systems, a persistent memory, and teaching it actual repeatable skills so it can execute the work end to end. Not just advise you, but actually do the work.
Right. And to understand why this shift is so critical, you really have to look at the massive, incredibly expensive problem sitting right at the center of modern enterprise tech.
Oh, it's a huge problem.
Over the last decade, companies have spent billions buying dozens of these highly sophisticated, specialized tools. You've got Salesforce as your CRM.
Right.
You've got Excel for your ad hoc spreadsheets, Power BI or Tableau for governed analytics, Snowflake or Databricks for your data warehouse, and an ERP system for financials.
So many tools.
Right. And these are all beautiful, powerful, expensive systems. But what is the actual integration layer connecting them?
It's you.
Yes.
It's the listener. It is a highly paid human being. You are the integration layer.
Unfortunately.
You are the one manually exporting a CSV file from Salesforce, saving it to your desktop, opening it in Excel, fixing the dates.
Always fixing the dates.
Always. And then opening another browser tab for Power BI, downloading a totally different data set, and just mashing them together. We've automated the systems, but we have completely failed to automate the manual work that happens in the white space between them.
Precisely. The shift from a traditional chatbot model to an agentic model is about finally addressing that white space.
Yeah, and I think to truly appreciate how to build an AI agent, we first have to hold up a mirror and admit just how painful our current workflow really is. It is an absolute nightmare.
It really is.
Let's walk through a scenario that anyone in operations or analytics will recognize instantly. Okay, it's Tuesday morning. You just sat down with your coffee. Your VP of sales pings you on Slack and asks one single question. Why did the Northeast region miss forecast last quarter?
It's a totally reasonable question. 9 words.
Very reasonable.
But the amount of cascading labor those 9 words trigger is just staggering.
Oh, it's awful. Let's break down the agony of those next few hours. First, you open Salesforce. You navigate to the Reports tab. You run a report on the Northeast opportunities. You wait for it to load. But you immediately realize Salesforce doesn't have the actual invoiced revenue, right? Only the booked pipeline.
Right, so that's a dead end.
Yep, so you click export.
Yeah.
You save Northeast Ops final v2.csv to your downloads folder. Then you open Excel. You start cleaning the data because, some account executive put a comma in an account name, which just completely broke all your columns.
Classic. And that is just step 1. Now you need the actual invoice sales data to compare against that forecast.
Right, so you log into your ERP system, or maybe you go run a SQL query against Snowflake. You pull that massive data set, you download another CSV,
Right, downloading.
bring that into a second tab in Excel.
Yeah.
You write a complex Excel OCUP to join the Salesforce data to the Snowflake data.
Mm.
And inevitably, the VLOOKUP returns a bunch of NA errors because, well, the Salesforce account ID doesn't perfectly match the ERP customer ID.
Never does.
So you spend 30 minutes manually mapping those orphans. Then you open Power BI to check the historical trends just to make sure you aren't crazy. You find a discrepancy. You go back into Salesforce, clicking through individual account records to figure out what happened.
It's just endless clicking.
Finally, you piece the narrative together. Like, okay, a couple core product lines dropped off, and 2 massive deals slipped past the end of the quarter. You write up your conclusions in a Word document, and then this is the absolute worst part.
Making the deck.
Yes. You open PowerPoint. You spend 2 hours painstakingly copying charts, aligning text boxes, just trying to make 5 slides look presentable for the executive meeting.
From the Slack message to the final PowerPoint deck, that 9-word question might take you 3 hours. And if the data is messy, it might take you 3 days.
And here's the kicker, right? Or the real irony of this whole thing. Along the way, you probably used AI.
Oh, absolutely.
You probably had ChatGPT open in another window. You might have asked it, hey, what's the correct syntax for an index match formula with 2 criteria? Or pasted in a bullet point and said, can you make this sound more professional for a VP? At the end of the day, you close your laptop and think, wow, I am really leveraging AI at work.
But you are still doing all the heavy lifting.
Exactly.
The chatbot hasn't fixed the core architectural problem. The human is still the manual bridge between these systems. You are still the one deciding which application to open, which data to extract, how to clean it, where to paste it.
Yeah.
You're directing the orchestra, playing all the instruments, and basically just asking the AI occasionally if your sheet music looks okay.
I think of it this way. It's like we have invented the world's most brilliant Michelin star chef.
Right.
They've read every recipe ever written. They know the chemical reaction of every ingredient.
Great analogy.
Thanks. But instead of letting them actually cook in the kitchen, we're keeping them locked in the dining room. We're doing all the chopping, all the sautéing, canicking over the stove, and we are just passing little notes under the door to the chef asking, hey, how many minutes should I boil this pasta?
Right. You're doing the labor, you're just outsourcing the trivia.
Exactly. We're outsourcing the trivia.
That is an excellent way to visualize the limitation here. We're using a highly capable reasoning engine as a mere reference tool.
So contrast that agonizing Tuesday morning with the agentic objective. Imagine you have this setup we're going to discuss today. The VP asks, why did the Northeast miss forecast?
Right.
Instead of clicking into Salesforce, you turn to your agent and give it a single objective. You just say, determine why the Northeast missed forecast last quarter, identify the primary drivers, and prepare a 5-slide executive presentation explaining the variance.
In a properly configured agentic model, the agent receives that objective and determines its own operational steps.
Which is mind-blowing.
It really is. It knows it needs pipeline data, so it queries the CRM. It knows it needs actuals, so it queries the data warehouse. It pulls the data into its own environment. It runs the joins, identifies the missing IDs, investigates the anomalies, finds the slipped deals, calculates the exact variance, and then uses a script to generate the actual PowerPoint file.
Wow.
The enterprise applications, Salesforce, Snowflake, PowerPoint, they haven't disappeared. But the manual, soul-crushing human handoffs between them have completely vanished.
Okay, that sounds like pure magic.
Yeah.
And if I'm listening to this right now, my immediate reaction is probably, that sounds amazing, but I need a PhD in computer science to build it, or I need to wait 5 years for some massive enterprise software vendor to sell this to my company for $1 million.
Which is what everyone assumes.
Right. So how do we actually get the AI out of the dining room and into the kitchen?
Well, the most important thing for people to realize is that you do not need to be a software engineer and you do not need to wait for a vendor. The architectural pieces to do this exist right now, today.
Today.
But to get the AI into the kitchen, you have to fundamentally change how you view software. You have to stop thinking in terms of applications. Stop thinking, I need to open Salesforce or I need to open Excel. You need to start thinking entirely in terms of business objectives and capabilities.
So if we want the AI in the kitchen, the first thing it needs is a place to stand, right?
Yeah.
A place to chop the vegetables. It needs a desk.
Yes, a desk.
And to be clear, you don't just start this journey by wiring an open source AI directly into your company's production mainframe and hoping for the best.
Oh, definitely not. That is a guaranteed way to bring your business to a grinding halt and get yourself fired by your chief information security officer before lunch.
Yeah, let's avoid that.
You have to start small. You start with a localized, controlled environment.
Let's talk about giving AI a desk. This is what we call the workspace. We need an environment where the agent can actually exist, read files, write code, and validate its own results.
Exactly.
The sources for today's deep dive point to tools like OpenAI's Codex, or Anthropic's Claude Code, or Google's Gemini CLI. Let's demystify that acronym real quick. CLI, what is that?
CLI stands for Command Line Interface. If you aren't a developer, think of the CLI as that black screen with green text you see hackers typing into in movies.
Right, the matrix screen.
Exactly. It's a way to interact with your computer using text commands instead of clicking on graphical folders and icons. But these new AI CLI tools are different. They merge the conversational ability of a large language model with the file system access of a command line.
So instead of opening a web browser and going to chatgpt.com, you're opening a terminal window on your own computer.
Yeah.
And the AI is sitting right there inside your hard drive.
Exactly. And that represents a massive architectural shift. In the browser-based chatbot model, you have to bring your data to the AI. You click the little paperclip icon, you upload your CSV file to their servers, you ask a question, and the AI processes it in a vacuum.
Right, isolated.
With a tool like Claude Code, you are reversing that relationship. You are giving the AI an environment where it exists alongside your files.
Practically speaking, you create a literal folder on your computer. Let's call it Sales Ops Agent.
Good name.
Inside that main folder, you create a very specific structure. You make a folder called data. You make one called outputs. You make one called reference.
Yeah.
And you make one called skills. This folder structure is the agent's physical desk.
So going back to our earlier scenario, if you manually export that Northeast sales CSV, you don't upload it to a browser. You just drop it into the data folder.
Okay.
You open your command line in that workspace, and you tell the agent, analyze the sales data in the data folder, figure out which specific territories caused the miss, and put an executive summary in the outputs folder.
And what blows my mind is what you aren't telling it. You aren't telling it to write Python. You aren't telling it to use the pandas data library. You aren't telling it to create a pivot table or which columns to match.
Right, because it has autonomy.
Because it is sitting in a true work environment, it inspects the folder, it sees the CSV, it decides on its own to write a Python script in the background to analyze the data.
And this is where the autonomy really shines. Let's say it writes that script, runs it, and encounters a data error. Maybe a column header has a weird character in it.
Happens all the time.
In a chatbot, the process just stops. The chatbot tells you it failed. But in a CLI environment, the agent reads the error message, realizes its own code failed, rewrites its own code to strip out the weird character, runs it again, successfully analyzes the data, and then generates the final text summary into your outputs folder. It completes the loop of work independently.
It is actually doing the job. It's washing the dishes when it realizes they're dirty rather than just texting you the dishes are dirty.
Exactly.
But okay, here's the immediate bottleneck. Our agent has a desk, it can write code, it can analyze files, but it is essentially an incredibly smart amnesiac. It doesn't know anything about our specific company. It doesn't know that our fiscal year ends in October. It doesn't know how we define a mid-market account.
Right. Without context, an LLM defaults to generic statistical averages.
And usually if I'm using a chatbot, I have to type all that context into my prompt every single time. Hey, please analyze this. But remember that for us, revenue means invoice net sales, excluding hardware returns, and our Q3 ends on October 31st.
Which is exhausting.
It is exhausting to constantly remind the AI of the basic rules of the game.
It is exhausting, and more importantly, it introduces a massive point of failure. Because the one Tuesday you're in a rush and you forget to type that rule into the prompt, the AI will use a generic calendar, miscalculate the quarter, and hand you a wildly incorrect variance number.
Oh, man.
You cannot build a reliable operations function on human memory. This brings us to the foundational piece of an agentic environment, the agents.md file.
Yes, the agents.md file. Tell us exactly what this is and how it works.
Think of it as the persistent operating manual for your digital employee. The .md just stands for Markdown, which is a very lightweight, simple text format that AI models read incredibly well. You create this simple text file, and you drop it right in the root of your Sales Ops Agent workspace folder. Every time you ask the agent to do anything, the system automatically reads this file first before it takes action.
So it's basically setting the baseline rules of reality for the agent, so I don't have to repeat myself.
Exactly. You are taking the institutional knowledge that usually lives in the brains of your senior analysts, and you're embedding it into the environment itself. The environment carries the expectations, not the prompt.
So what are we actually writing inside this agents.md file? Let's get specific.
You structure it around the core rules that materially dictate how your company calculates truth. You start with systems of record. You explicitly write down, Salesforce is the authoritative system for opportunity pipeline. The ERP is the authoritative system for invoiced actual sales.
Which means, if I ask it to check the pipeline, it won't waste time trying to look for pipeline data in the ERP export. It knows who owns what.
Exactly.
What else?
Business definitions. This is where most analytics projects fail. You have to write down exactly what words mean. For example, revenue strictly means invoice net sales, excluding professional services. Or, an active customer is defined as a customer with invoice sales greater than 0 in the trailing 12 months.
Okay, pause on that word active for a second, because if I just tell a generic AI to find active customers, the AI might assume an active customer is anyone who logged into our web portal yesterday, or anyone who opened a marketing email.
Precisely. The AI will guess. And AI guesses with extreme articulate confidence.
It sounds so sure of itself.
It really does. If you don't define the terminology, you will get flawlessly presented entirely fictional data. You also need to include data rules in this file, a classic example from the sources. Always validate join cardinality before combining data sets, or do not assume a Salesforce account ID is a one-to-one match with an ERP customer ID.
Oh man, validate join cardinality. Let me translate that for anyone who hasn't suffered through a relational database nightmare.
Please do.
When you mash two spreadsheets together, say a list of customers and a list of their orders, you have to make sure you don't accidentally duplicate rows. If John Smith has 3 different shipping addresses in one system, and you join his sales data, a bad join might accidentally triple John Smith's revenue in the final total.
It's a disaster.
I have personally seen multi-million-dollar dashboards where a company's revenue magically doubled overnight because a many-to-many join went horribly wrong.
It is one of the most common catastrophic errors in data work. A junior analyst or a generic AI might just slap a Seattle join together and call it a day. But a senior analyst knows to check if the row counts exploded after the join.
Right.
By putting validate join cardinality into the agents.md file, you are giving the AI the caution and the rigor of a senior analyst.
Okay, but if I'm setting this up, my immediate instinct is to look at this magical file and think, great, I'm going to copy and paste every single rule, every edge case, the entire 50-page employee handbook, and the 200-page Salesforce architecture guide right into this one file. Why shouldn't I just give it everything?
I am so glad you brought that up, because that is the exact trap that causes these projects to collapse under their own weight. If you turn agents.md into a garbage drawer of information, it becomes unmaintainable.
And the AI just gets confused by the noise, right?
Exactly. The concept of attention in LLMs is finite. If you give it 200 pages of text, the core rules will get diluted. The agents.md file should only contain the high-level commandments, the absolute non-negotiables.
So where does all the deep detail go? Because my company does have a horribly complex fiscal calendar, and we do have a 20-page document mapping out our global sales territories. Where do I put that if not in the instructions?
That is exactly why we created the reference folder on the agent's desk. You take your complex fiscal calendar, you save it as a simple CSV file, and you put it in the reference folder. Then, in your agents.md file, you simply write one line. When evaluating dates for fiscal reporting periods, always consult the file reference /fiscalcalendar.csv to map calendar dates to fiscal quarters.
Oh, so you're teaching the agent where to look when it needs specific context, rather than forcing it to memorize the whole encyclopedia up front?
Yes. You put the territory maps, the product hierarchies, and the pricing matrices into the reference folder. You're building an organized filing cabinet for the agent.
Okay, this is brilliant. Let's take inventory. We have given the agent the desk, the local workspace folder. We've given it an operating manual, the agents.md file, so it knows the rules of our business. It can write code to analyze our CSV files, and it knows to check the reference folder for the weird fiscal calendar. But if we stop here, the agent is still entirely dependent on me. It is only working with local files that I had to manually download from Salesforce and drag into its folder.
Which means you are still acting as the human integration layer. You are just fetching data for a slightly smarter calculator.
Right. So it's time to give the AI hands. We need to be able to reach out into the enterprise, log into these systems, and get the data itself.
Yes, we do.
But we have to do this safely. If I'm listening to this, I'm thinking my IT security department, my CISO, will literally fire me and lock me in the basement if I try to hook up an autonomous AI directly to our live Salesforce production environment. How do we do this without triggering a massive security audit?
The security anxiety is completely justified, and it's why the architecture of how we connect the AI is so critical. An AI doesn't manifest a physical mouse and keyboard and click on the Salesforce login screen.
That would be creepy.
Very. It needs a secure, governed bridge. This is where we introduce a rapidly emerging standard called MCP, or the Model Context Protocol.
Model Context Protocol. Explain that to me like I'm 5.
Think of MCP as a universal adapter for AI tools. Historically, if you wanted a piece of software to talk to Salesforce, a developer had to spend months writing a custom API integration. It was brittle and expensive.
Yeah, integration projects take forever.
Exactly. MCP is an open source standard that allows a system like Salesforce or a database to expose a standardized menu of tools. It says to the AI, here are the 5 actions you're allowed to perform, and here is exactly how to ask for them.
So instead of the AI wildly hacking into the system, Salesforce provides a controlled toolbox that the AI knows how to open.
Precisely. And this makes the integration secure and scalable. Salesforce actually provides hosted MCP servers for this exact purpose. To get started, you want to give the agent read-only access. You do not want the AI to have the ability to delete accounts or change stages yet.
Definitely not.
So you activate an MCP server capability like Subject Reads. This strictly allows the AI to run queries and read data, physically preventing it from mutating any records.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But the AI still has to prove who it is, right?
Yeah.
It can't just knock on the Salesforce door and say, hey, I'm using the universal adapter, give me all the data.
Correct. And this is where we address the CISO's nightmare. The way you authorize this connection is through OAuth, using an external client app, or ECA, in Salesforce. If you've ever used your Google account to log into a third-party website, you've used OAuth.
Right, like signing in with Google.
Exactly. You don't give the website your Google password, you give them a secure token.
Like getting a key card at a hotel. The hotel doesn't give you the master key to the building. They give you a key card that only opens room 412, and it expires on Thursday.
That is the perfect analogy. When you set up this connection, the AI does not become some anonymous, all-powerful integration user. It does not get God mode access to the entire company. It authenticates as you, the human user.
Let me make absolutely sure I understand the gravity of this. If I, as a sales ops analyst, log into Salesforce right now, and the system physically prevents me from seeing the HR compensation fields for the sales reps, my AI agent cannot see them either.
It cannot. The tools exposed through MCP operate entirely within the authenticated user's existing permission boundaries. If your human user profile cannot query a field, your agent's query will be rejected. Your existing hard-fought security model is entirely respected.
That is incredibly reassuring. Because the absolute worst-case scenario is an IT department creating one giant AI master account, giving it access to literally every object in the CRM, and then everyone wonders why confidential merger and acquisition data just showed up in a weekly pipeline summary.
The sources for our deep dive are emphatic about this. Creating a God mode integration account for AI is terrible governance. It destroys your audit trail. When a query is run, you want the system logs to show exactly which human user authorized that action, what they were allowed to see, and what data was returned. AI must operate inside your organization's access controls, not around them.
Okay, so we've got read-only Salesforce connected via MCP. The AI can now safely reach in and pull live opportunity data on its own, but Salesforce is only one piece of the puzzle. What about the rest of the stack? What about Power BI or our Snowflake data warehouse or even some weird custom API our engineering team built?
The exact same architectural principle applies. You start thinking about logging into tools, and you start thinking about equipping the agent with capabilities. Microsoft now provides MCP servers for Power BI. You can give the agent tools to query Snowflake. If you have a custom internal system, a developer can stand up a simple MCP server over it in an afternoon. You are just adding new tools to the agent's toolbox.
But wait, I have a major pushback here. Let's really look at this analytically.
Yeah.
If my agent is sitting at its desk and it is basically a coding genius that can write flawless SQL queries, Why do I even need to connect it to Power BI? If the data in Power BI ultimately comes from Snowflake anyway, shouldn't I just connect the agent straight to the raw tables in the Snowflake data warehouse and let it calculate everything itself? It seems so much cleaner than going through a dashboarding tool.
That is a very logical assumption, and it is a massive trap.
Really?
Yes, bypassing your analytical tools to query raw tables is a terrible idea. The shortest path to the data is very rarely the correct path to the answer.
Why, if the math is right, why does it matter where the data comes from?
Because of the semantic layer. Think about what actually lives inside Power BI or Tableau. It is not just raw rows and columns. That system contains your semantic layer.
The semantic layer. Explain that.
Bypassing the semantic layer and letting the AI write raw SQL is like bypassing your company's accountants and just handing the IRS a shoebox full of raw receipts.
Oh.
Right. The semantic layer is the accountant. It is the culmination of years of vicious, bloody corporate arguments over the governed definition of net sales. It contains complex, hard-coded logic for your fiscal calendar, your currency conversions, your product hierarchies.
Oh. So if I let the AI go straight to the raw database, it's just going to invent its own math. It might calculate revenue by simply adding up the amount column, completely ignoring the fact that we subtract hardware returns and apply regional tax adjustment.
Exactly. The AI will give you an answer that is mathematically flawless based on the raw data, but completely wrong based on the business reality. The revenue number it gives you won't match the CFO's dashboard, and chaos ensues. You want the agent to interact with the approved business logic. You want it to query Power BI so it inherits the trusted, governed calculations your company has already invested heavily in building.
That makes total sense. We don't want a rogue mathematician. We want an agent that plays by the corporate rules.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a breath and look at the architecture we've built so far. Our agent has a desk, the workspace. It has its operating manual agents, .md. It has hands, it can reach into Salesforce safely using our permissions, and it can query the governed semantic layer in Power BI.
It is a highly capable environment, but we are missing the engine of automation.
Right. It knows the rules, it can touch the data, but does it actually know how to do the specific tasks we do every single Monday? If I just tell this incredibly smart setup, analyze the pipeline, the AI might pull the data, look at it, and just output a sentence saying, yep, looks like you have a pipeline.
Yeah.
We need to move from just giving it persistent context to giving it repeatable methodologies.
We need to stop reteaching it how to do the job every time we ask it a question. We need to build skills.
What exactly is a skill in this agentic framework? Because I hear people talk about prompt engineering all the time, where they have a really good 2-page prompt saved in a Word document that they paste into ChatGPT. Is a skill just a really big prompt?
A prompt asks an AI to help you perform work in an ad hoc moment. A skill codifies an exact, repeatable operational methodology for how your specific organization performs a specific type of work.
Okay, so it's more rigid.
Yes. Let's go back to analyzing the pipeline. If you put 5 different human analysts in a room and ask them to analyze the pipeline, you will get 5 completely different analyses.
Absolutely. One person will just look at the total dollar volume. Another will obsess over how long deals have been stuck in the negotiation stage. Another will just look at deals closing this month.
Exactly. A skill defines what the operation analyze the pipeline actually means for your company, step by step.
Let's make this tangible. The source material outlines building a specific pipeline health analysis skill. And reading through this blew my mind because it is not just, please summarize this data. It is a rigorous, deeply analytical methodology. Can we break down what this actually looks like?
Absolutely. Think of this as a file, let's call it pipelinehealth.md, that lives in the skills folder on the agent's desk. It tells the agent exactly what operational steps to execute when invoked. Step 1 of this skill is absolutely critical. Validate the data first.
Validate the data. Because humans intuitively do this, right? We open a spreadsheet, and if half the rows are blank, we know something is wrong. But a generic AI might just do the math on the half-blank spreadsheet and present it as fact.
Precisely. Never assume the data is good just because the query executed successfully. The skill explicitly instructs the agent to check the data quality before doing any analysis. It checks for missing opportunity IDs, it checks for duplicate records, it checks for deals assigned to inactive sellers.
The phantom rep problem, where a sales rep quits, but they still own 40 open opportunities in the CRM, which artificially inflates the pipeline by $3 million. We want an AI that catches that, stops the presses, and says, hey, before I give you a forecast, I found a material data quality issue you need to fix.
That is the behavior of a senior operator. Step 2 of the skill. Determine the target. Analyzing pipeline volume is meaningless in a vacuum. It only matters relative to the quota.
Right.
If the target is $100 million and you've already invoiced $75 million, the question isn't, do we have $100 million in pipeline? The question the agent is instructed to ask is, do we have enough realistic pipeline to cover the remaining $25 million gap?
Which leads right into the next steps of the methodology. Evaluate pipeline coverage and pipeline quality. It tells the agent to break the coverage down by region and product line. But here's the critical part. Not all pipeline dollars are equal.
Exactly. A $500,000 deal that just entered the prospecting stage today is fundamentally different than a $500,000 deal in final negotiation that the customer committed to yesterday. The skill forces the agent to evaluate the pipeline by stage distribution and apply historical conversion rates.
So if we traditionally only win 20% of our prospecting deals, the agent knows to weight that pipeline accordingly, rather than just blindly adding up the raw dollar amounts. What else does this skill look for?
Step 5 is finding stale opportunities. The skill explicitly defines what stale means for your organization. Maybe for your sales cycle, it means an opportunity has had no stage movement and no logged activities in 30 days. Step 6 is identifying close state movement.
Oh, the classic salesperson maneuver. The deal is supposed to close in April, then they push it to May, then June, then September. The agent is explicitly instructed to track the history of the close date and flag deals that keep slipping quarter to quarter as high risk.
And then step 8 is vital for executive leadership. Identify concentration risk. You might have enough weighted pipeline to hit your target, but if 60% of that pipeline relies on 2 massive multi-million-dollar deals, you have a completely different risk profile than if it was spread across 50 smaller deals. The agent must mathematically calculate if the quarter relies on a disproportionate whale.
And finally, it takes all this rigorous analysis, the data quality, the coverage, the stale deals, the slippage, the concentration risk, and it ranks the risks by business impact, producing a structured output. So instead of a massive data dump, you get a clean executive summary highlighting the top 3 threats to the forecast.
Now, when the VP asks why the Northeast missed or asks for a pipeline review, you simply tell the agent to run the pipeline health analysis. The agent invokes that entire battle-tested methodology automatically.
Here is where this concept of skills gets really, really interesting to me. Let's say I run this skill, and the agent flags a tiny $5,000 deal as a major risk because it hasn't moved in 40 days. In a traditional chatbot interface, I would look at that, roll my eyes, and just type into the chat, hey, ignore the small deals this time, get my answer, and move on. And next week, the chatbot makes the exact same mistake. But with a skill?
With the skill, your corrections become permanent infrastructure. This is perhaps the biggest mindset shift of the agentic model. You do not just correct the output for that one ephemeral conversation. If the agent flags a $5,000 deal as a major risk, you open the pipelinehealth.md skill file and you update the methodology. You add a permanent rule. Only flag opportunity level risks if they represent more than 2% of the required gap to target.
It's like we are slowly training a digital colleague. We're building AI executable operating knowledge. Every single time we catch a weird edge case or a bizarre regional quirk, we teach the skill, and our entire organization gets slightly smarter, slightly more robust, forever.
Exactly. The intelligence compounds. And what's more, these skills are composable. You don't just build one massive script. You build a pipeline health skill, a customer matching skill, a pricing variance skill, and eventually you can ask the agent to chain them together to solve entirely new, complex problems.
Okay, so we've run the gauntlet. The agent reached into Salesforce, it pulled the actuals from Power BI, it ran the rigorous 10-step pipeline methodology, and it found the exact reasons we missed the forecast. But if we stop here, we are still kind of failing.
Why is that?
Because what usually happens next? The agent prints out a brilliant textual summary in the terminal window. I read it and say, wow, incredible insights. And then I have to open PowerPoint. I have to create the slides. I have to copy the text. I have to build the Excel charts to send to finance. We are stopping 10 feet before the finish line and making the human carry the baton the rest of the way.
You are identifying the final friction point. We are making the human execute the final mile of formatting and delivery. This brings us to section 5 of our architecture, agent-created deliverables. The realization here is that the deliverable itself must be part of the task.
Let's compare 2 different ways of asking the AI for help. Prompt 1, the old way. Give me an outline for a 5-slide executive presentation explaining the current pipeline risks. What happens? The AI spits out 5 bullet points, and I spend 2 hours building the slides. Prompt 2, the agentic way. analyze the pipeline, identify the major risks, and create a 5-slide executive PowerPoint presentation, saving it in the outputs folder.
The first prompt asks the AI to advise you on the work. The second prompt asks the AI to perform the work. But to do that successfully without producing a messy, unusable file, the agent needs instructions on how to build deliverables. Just like we built a pipeline skill, you need to build a spreadsheet skill and a presentation skill.
Let's talk about the rules for spreadsheets first. Because an Excel file isn't just a container for data. It is a user interface that a human being has to read and interact with later. What rules do we put in a spreadsheet skill?
You instruct the agent on structural hygiene. You write rules like, preserve raw source data on a separate tab from the transformed analytical data. Do not overwrite original inputs. Use clear, descriptive tab names. Always include a summary sheet at the front. And crucially, always include a data refresh date and cite the specific systems the data was pulled from.
So it builds an audit trail right into the Excel file. I love that. And what about PowerPoint? Because I feel like this is where AI traditionally fails miserably. If you ask an AI to make a slide deck, it usually creates slides with 500 words of tiny text crammed onto them.
Which is exactly why your presentation skill must contain strict formatting commandments. You teach it. Do not overcrowd slides, maximum 4 bullet points per slide. Lead with business outcomes, not the analytical methodology. And incredibly, you can put your company's approved branded corporate PPTX template file into the agent's reference folder and instruct it. Always use this template file as the base for any presentations.
The rule about slide titles really stood out in the source material. It's such a subtle human nuance. A weak junior analyst slide title is just a topic. Northeast sales performance. A strong executive-level slide title states the conclusion of the data below it. Northeast missed forecast by $4.02, driven primarily by 2 large deal slips. You literally have to teach the AI the difference between reporting a topic and communicating a conclusion.
And by codifying that into the skill, you ensure the output is executive ready. Now, how is the AI actually constructing this PowerPoint file behind the scenes?
Right, because it doesn't have hands to move a mouse and click on the PowerPoint ribbon.
Exactly. It uses code as an implementation detail. The agent, sitting in its CLI environment, will write a Python script using a library like Python PPTX. It will map the data from its analysis into the text boxes of your corporate template, execute the script, and generate a finalized PPTX file in your outputs folder.
Code as an implementation detail.
Oh.
I love that phrasing. I, as the sales ops professional, don't need to know how to write Python. I don't need to know what Python PPTX is. The code is just a disposable tool the agent uses to construct the file I asked for.
Precisely. You care about the output, not the mechanism.
But wait, hold on. If the AI is writing Python to do the math and mapping variables to make the slides autonomously, isn't there a massive risk here? What if the math is wrong? What if a chart is completely backwards? If I just take this AI-generated PowerPoint and forward it blindly to the CEO, I could look like an absolute fool, or worse, get fired.
That is a very real danger, and it is why we must emphasize a core tenet of this architecture. AI creation does not equal AI infallibility. You never, ever just forward it blindly.
Never.
The human's role in the organization doesn't disappear. It fundamentally shifts. You move from being the manual data compiler to the high-value reviewer. You are the editor-in-chief. The agent builds the draft. You open the file. You check the numbers against your own intuition. You challenge the narrative.
Right, because the AI might say the Northeast missed because of a product decline. But I know that the regional VP of the Northeast quit halfway through the quarter and took 3 reps with him. The AI doesn't know the human context. So I review the slide, add that vital context, and refine the narrative.
Exactly. You are managing the work, applying human intuition, and refining the final product, rather than spending 3 hours manually assembling it.
Okay, we have all the puzzle pieces on the table. We have the desk, the rules, the hands, the skills, and the deliverables. Let's run the exact scenario that started this whole deep dive from start to finish. Let's see what the modern agentic sales ops role actually looks like in practice. It's Tuesday morning. The VP slacks me. I turn to my agent and I issue the prompt. Determine why the Northeast missed forecast last quarter, identify the drivers, validate against approved sources, and create an Excel workbook and a 5-slide PPT in the outputs folder.
Let's track the step-by-step execution by the autonomous agent. First, it receives the prompt and immediately checks agents.md. It confirms what forecast and missed mathematically mean based on your business definitions. Next, it uses its MCP connection to query the semantic layer in Power BI to find the exact approved revenue miss. Let's say it finds a $4.2 million negative variance.
Forget acquired. Now it needs to explain where that $4.2 million went.
It queries Salesforce via read-only MCP to investigate the pipeline history. It runs the pipeline health skill and finds that $1.4 million of the gap is tied to 3 specific late-stage opportunities that slipped into the next quarter.
But $1.4 million doesn't explain a $4.2 million miss. It's not done.
No. So it writes a SQL query to the Snowflake data warehouse to look at historical invoice-level transactions. It finds a specific legacy product line that saw a sudden $1.2 million drop in renewals, and it identifies that 2 major existing customers downsized their contracts, accounting for another $900K.
And let's say, because we explicitly taught it in the skills to look for data quality issues, it notices that a territory boundary code was altered in the system halfway through the quarter, which artificially shifted $700 of revenue out of the Northeast and into the Mid-Atlantic. It successfully distinguishes between a real business decline and a data model glitch.
Having compiled the complete narrative, it invokes the spreadsheet and presentation skills. It writes a background Python script to compile the data into a properly tabbed, auditable Excel workbook. It writes another script to populate your corporate PowerPoint template with crisp, conclusion-driven slide titles.
And then,
Yeah.
does it email the CEO?
No. And then, crucially, the agent stops. It pings you and asks for human review. It reports in the terminal. Analysis complete. Deliverables created in the outputs folder. 3 data quality exceptions found regarding territory boundaries. No production systems were modified.
I love that last sentence. No production systems were modified because it found that territory glitch, but it did not autonomously log into Salesforce and rewrite 30,000 territory assignments to fix it.
This is the critical distinction between access and autonomy. This is the heart of AI governance. You must differentiate between read access, the ability to investigate records and find problems, and write access, the ability to change the business systems.
So how do we fix the glitch?
If a massive systemic change is needed, the agent prepares the proposed changes. It generates a CSV file with the 30,000 corrected territory assignments. The human reviews that file, spot checks it, and then the human authorizes the execution. The human is the ultimate governor of the system.
The human is the governor. I think this is the most empowering part of this whole deep dive. I hear all of this, and I think, we aren't losing our jobs to AI. We are losing the absolute worst parts of our jobs to AI. We are losing the VLOOKUP errors, the CSV downloads, the formatting nightmares at midnight.
Being a sales ops professional or a financial analyst is not fundamentally about downloading CSVs. It is about creating leverage for the organization. It is about helping leadership make better, faster, more accurate decisions. AI is simply raising the minimum standard for what a professional can produce in a single day.
But, and there is a big but here, if someone listening to this refuses to learn this architecture, if they insist on manually exporting everything, building slides by hand, and using AI just to rewrite their emails, they are going to be completely outpaced by the analyst sitting next to them who took the time to build these agents.
Without a doubt, the productivity gap will become insurmountable. But the good news for the listener is that you do not need a massive corporate mandate to start. You don't need $1 million budget or permission from the board of directors. You start incredibly small.
Pick one painful workflow. Just one. Maybe it's the Monday morning pipeline review that ruins your Sunday night. Create a folder on your computer. Write a simple agents.md file with your 5 most important rules. Give the agent one single connection. Maybe you don't even use MCP yet. Maybe you just drop a local CSV of the pipeline into the folder to start. Teach it one skill. And see if you can eliminate the manual handoffs for that one single task.
Exactly. We have to stop measuring AI success by asking how many employees logged into the chatbot today. That is a vanity metric. The real return on investment, the true metric of transformation, is how many manual workflow handoffs were permanently eliminated from our operations.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground today. We took a journey from viewing AI as a fragile, amnesiac chatbot assistant to building a robust, fully functional, agentic operations environment. We gave the AI a workspace desk. We gave it persistent memory with the agents.md file. We safely gave it hands to touch our enterprise data via the model context protocol. We taught it repeatable, methodical skills. And we gave it the ability to cross the finish line by creating actual deliverables.
We moved from asking AI how to do the work to giving it an environment where it can safely, autonomously perform the work under human supervision.
I want to leave everyone listening with a final, slightly provocative thought to mull over as you digest all of this. Today, we talked about building a highly capable, specialized agent for sales operations. But zoom out for a second. What happens next year when the marketing department builds their own highly specialized marketing agent and finance builds a ruthless, financially optimized agent?
The landscape of the enterprise changes entirely.
Exactly. Because soon, the biggest bottleneck in your company won't be human-to-software integration. It will be agent-to-agent negotiation. How do you govern a corporate world where your sales ops agent is aggressively arguing with the finance agent over whose pipeline data is correct? How do you resolve conflicts when two autonomous AI systems have slightly different instructions in their respective agents, not MD files?
That is the next great frontier of enterprise architecture, and it is coming much faster than people realize.
It is going to get absolutely wild. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, the future of work isn't about you getting faster at operating complex software. It's about building governed environments where the software can increasingly operate itself, freeing you up to do the actual thinking. Now go get that chef out of the dining room and let them into the kitchen. We will see you next time.